Well, I believe it's the high time the world power concentrate on Nigeria issue, and I believe it's time for the America to step in to do the needful. It's not by going to war against them alone. It's by challenging the established truth that is known, that is fundamental in Nigeria, and the push for Islamization of Nigeria that is undergoing, that is going into ways of genocide. It's a grand plan by the Muslim cleric and those in power. I believe that the need to Islamatize Nigeria has been informed right from the day of IBB. And we all know that in Nigeria, but we see it escalating and growing gradually. And the world turned a blind eye to that. And that's what metamorphoses to these all things that we're seeing right now. Because one of the things is, it seems as if when we cried those days, as if we were just talking out of fallacy, we're just making a mole out of nothing. But the problem has been persistently growing gradually. I remember the days of Abiola, of old, the late Abiola in Nigeria. The cry then was, we don't want Muslim government. And I remember the story of Abiola burning out the boat, a shipload of Bible and all this stuff that went before himself encountered what they experienced. So it has been a gradual push from Nigeria to Islamatize the whole country. And by my own experience, I remember a conference I had with one of the government officials in South Africa when I organized a conference in South Africa. I remember I had a meeting of almost 4 hours with a government official who happens to be a Christian, and he said, listen, you guys didn't know what was coming. And all that we discussed is now becoming a reality in life. And having been part of this, I was in Nigeria when these things start growing momentum gradually. And I was in the PFM meeting where we were discussing issue of how to protect churches, because it was actually operating in Abuja. The first church bombing was not far from me in Abuja there, and where people's lives were wasted. And we expected the government to be proactive, but the government was just windows dressing the issue. They aren't facing the reality. I remember what we discussed in PFM then. We come up with understanding that we have to protect ourselves. And I've been having the experience of living in the state of Israel for a while. I spoke loud and clear in that meeting that if we don't fight for ourselves, no one will fight for you. And with what is going on right now, it's clarity that if nothing is done, there will be no churches safe in Nigeria. The problem is that we have this attitude that it's not me. Until it knocks my door, I won't say a word. I want to give credit to President Trump for speaking up. And I want to appreciate his bold heart, because somebody needs to challenge the establishment. The Nigerian society, the Nigerian overall is under a massive threat. And we're just looking at a little snowball of it coming our way. And it's not Nigeria, it's going to capitulate the whole West Africa if it's not dealt with in Nigeria family. Because one of the things they plan is that Nigeria is the biggest place that if they can capture Nigeria, the rest countries are open for them. And that is why, with my own experience, I believe the president has said the right thing. And I trusted that it will be able to effect a change. The mode and the formation is going to go through, I don't know. But there needs to be a nation that will stand for Christ. And I'm grateful that America is doing that right now. And I'm proud to be here.
I worked in Nigeria. I worked in Nigeria in the media in the early 90s. I think that was beginning 1994. And during those days, there was, I don't know whether it was a conspiracy or a real fact, that the Muslim leaders of Nigeria always wanted to project Nigeria as a Muslim state. And so it was a sort of competition between Muslims and Christians. You found Christian leaders standing up to defend Christianity, and Muslim leaders, political leaders, trying to defend Islam. I recall so well a battle that ensued in Lagos. If you go to Nigeria, visiting Nigeria and landing at Lagos Muritala Mohammed Airport, you find a big mosque at the entrance to the airport. You also find a Christian church. I think it is a non-denominational building standing also at the entrance, but at the entrance of that airport too. Now, this is the story of those two buildings. The Muslims were told, in fact, I learned this from the religious leaders then in Nigeria. The mosque was erected by Sani Abacha used to portray Nigeria as a Muslim state. I think at that same moment they joined the OIC, Organization of the Islamic something. Then it was Archbishop Benson Idahuza who stood up for the Christian community and told Abacha, you have given Muslims a mosque in that place. We want a church also at the entrance into that airport. The idea was that they were Abacha and the Muslims, I suppose they were trying to do was, when you arrive in Nigeria as a guest and the first thing you see out of the airport is a mosque, you immediately recognize Nigeria as a Muslim state. So the Christian community led by Idahuza immediately got that and went to him and said, you must give the CAN, Christian Association of Nigeria, land at that same airport at the entrance to build a Christian church, and that was done. But the history of Boko Haram isn't, I mean, the history of attack of Christians in Nigeria predates the time of Boko Haram. Am I wrong?
No, I just want to let you know the history of the violence in Nigeria doesn't start with the Boko Haram alone. It's a long history in the Nigerian system, and is systematically planted and controlled by those in power, because they got to listen to their clerics, and they obey and they work according to the leadings, the fatwas, and the laws of Islam. They tried to Islamatize Nigeria about 3 or 4 times. It wasn't possible easily. So it wasn't the Boko Haram issue that started this. And when you look at the issue of the Boko Haram, you will understand that before that there was some situations in Nigeria. Boko Haram was just a small sect that Obasanjo noticed that was growing out of hands, and they felt they could cope with. And one of the things they do is that they walk into charity, and you know, the way they live in the north is different from the way we live in they live in the south. I want to move to the north and see some few things, and it's everywhere right now in Nigeria anyway. So they do this issue of gift and all this stuff, and the education is for the privilege in the north. Meanwhile, in the south, everybody, the Christian side, believed that our education is necessity, and everybody must be given equal chance to have the right and privilege to go to school. But in the north, it wasn't that way. Goodluck came in and tried to address that, but it was thrown through the window because the mindset of our leader. If you're talking about Boko Haram, you got to talk about our leadership first. There is no willingness to control this malice. There is no willingness to deal with this. So Boko Haram came into existence as a sect, and its power to Iran. I know that. I have some story about that which I might not be able to mention on air. They powered it, or they do a lot of things. Money were invested into it. I can tell you that. I know sizable amount of money was pushed into this place. One of the things I loved what the Americans did with Iran by beating them down this season, because that's a factor that we're facing a lot of problem. And with this, I want you to understand, I think we're off here.
So I guess you are saying, what you are saying is the Nigerian community much appreciates what Donald Trump is trying to do, is it?
Yes, but I think we're off here. Can you check it? Okay, we're back.
You think what?
I think we're back now.
Oh, okay.
Good.
So you are saying that the Christian community is very much in support of what Donald Trump is doing?
Yes, I can give you 100% of that, because we needed help. And I told people we need to renegotiate this country. We need to sit down and reanalyze where we're going. Because the church cannot continue to bear the ground of a group of people that is financed by external forces who have a mandate to exterminate other religion, to get rid, especially the Christian. I grew up in this, and I understand that the actual reason, the purpose of Islam to them is that they must Islamatize the whole country. And I'm a bishop, and I will tell you a funny story. When I lost a sister, a close sister of mine in Cuba, the first lady that was stabbed, that I went into the mortuary to bring her body out because I was so mad. I called in the war press. I think about 24 of them in a hotel in Abuja. We sat there, we blew the whole thing out of proportion. And then I sat with the police, the commanding officer police there. We discussed. They took me to mortuary and brought the lady out because I said I wanted to see how she was killed. And I discovered that she was just preaching early in the morning in the Abuja, in the main city, the headquarters of Nigeria. She was preaching 5:30 a.m. And somebody has warned that a week before, or 2 weeks before, that was 2016. And 5:30 to 6 a.m., a man came out and drive dagger through below her chest. I know about that because I saw the car. And she was killed that way. And when we went to meet with the police, they said 4 people were killed in that week in that area. So there's a silent operation going on all over the country. The major one that is coming up, that they are getting more bold and emboldened every day. When I saw that, I remember the feedback that I got. Where I'm going is this. A cleric came back to me and said, you know, you guys in Abuja here, we're watching you, and you are not as powerful as the others. You can be paying zakat to us. You can be paying us some money so that we can protect you. And I looked at him, I said, no matter what it takes, I'm ready to fight it out. Why am I saying this? That the one we're seeing in the Northeast is just the beginning of the operation. The mindset is towards the whole country, to overrun the country and to by force Islamatize the country. And if nobody stands up to challenge the government that is that gave a favorable condition for them to thrive in that country, we are doomed.
So do you see the political will from the government of Nigeria now that President Trump is trying to intervene? Do you see the political way for the government of Nigeria to finally eradicate Boko Haram? And secondly, added to that, we have been told for years that Ibrahim Babangida, former head of state, Muhammadu Buhari of late, they are part sponsors of Boko Haram. What do you know of this?
Let me start from the sponsoring. Listen, it's an established rule within the Muslim community. They have the carrot and the sword in their hands. And they call the shot in the country. And they have their means to the resources of the nation. And they want to perpetuate themselves in power. And that is why we end up to Muslim government that with nobody able to talk. If this could happen in 1979, it could have caused a disaster in Nigeria. But because they thought the church is wicked to the point that they can do as they like. So if you say that some people in government are sponsoring this, I say yes. I might not have the fact, but you know, they might not come publicly and say we gave $1 billion. But when you go into a community, let me give you an analogy to what you just described right now. When Sani Abacha was the head of state, it decided the commonwealth of the nation, the symbol that will represent a nation that is 50-50, is the Islamatized, is like the picture of the mosque. Before the late Archbishop Benson Dauda stood up to him and said, this cannot be done. Now Benson Dauda is gone. We don't have people like him. We thank God for this great man of God. And nobody is able to challenge them. So if they can do that openly, can you imagine how much the percentage of funds being channeled to the Muslim community? And these funds are, nobody monitor them. And what happened is that they have people who gave money without knowing what it's going to be used for. And when they began to greet each other and talk about politics, talked about their religion, they believe they have to, the rule in Nigeria is your religion first, the political second, the third is your nationality. What should I be? Your nationality first, political second, your religion last. So that's why we mixed it up. Bible says if the foundation is wrong, what shall the righteous do? So that's why I said this before, that Nigerians need to reconsider their independence. They need to come up, it boils up to this understanding that we have been agitating for. There's a need to redraw the architectural structure of Nigeria. There's a need to understand if you're going to do either a unilateral state or federal system. So I want to say this partially, directly, indirectly. I believe the government is supporting it. And let me say this to you. Most of the people that were captured by the army were reintegrated without proper debriefing into the Nigerian force. And so therefore they become an inside agent for Boko Haram. And they become inside agent for the terrorists. So what we've learned in Nigeria is to be violent pace. Like when we were, it got to a time that we have to be contributing money for our own defense. And the last thing is this: they were weakening of the Christian community. We aren't unable to fight for ourselves. I do say that to people. I say if the government wanted it to be violent, they should allow the churches, they should allow the pastor, they should allow the church themselves to carry gun. And then we'll see where it goes. But thank God for the understanding of Mr. Trump, the President Trump rather. I fully support that. And I believe with this action, maybe justice can be served.
Do you think, other than the persecution of the Christians excuse that President Trump is giving, do you see any other motivation behind what he's trying to do in Nigeria? Because this is very rare for an American president to threaten direct assault on an African country. They normally ignore Africa, right?
Well, let me say this. A lot of people say that. I do say, when we were under colonial masters, we complained about the colonial master. Now we have the second generation colonial rulers. They aren't looking for the interests of the people. And when they talk about the American interest, I said there's no country that goes to war without an interest. And there's nobody that goes into anything, that invests into anything without having to expect a return. The first interest for America would be that there would be peace in that region. I know they cite so many examples of American involvement and all this stuff. I've listened to those arguments all over. And most of the time when I heard of it, I said the scenario, the situation differs. America is not saying it's going to be in war with Nigeria. What America is declaring is that I'm going to come to solve this issue. And if they have ulterior motive and interest, it's even better than what we're going through right now. Because Boko Haram have seized territory and mineral resources of Nigeria are cut away without proper deal. Can you just imagine an aircraft flying to Nigeria in far north and cut away gold and all this stuff without proper inspection? Nigeria is just like a failed state. So we need help. I just need to say that. So I do not believe if it comes for anything, there's no country that goes into battle without expecting a return one way or the other.
So
I believe that.
My last question is whether you see the political will within Nigeria's political leadership to try to assuage the wrath of Donald Trump by finally exterminating Boko Haram.
Boko Haram cannot be exterminated, I can tell you that. It's not possible. You have to change the mentality on the ground. If you killed one, you get 10 tomorrow because of the scenario on the ground and because of the indoctrination that goes inside the church. Inside the mosque. It's a consistent indoctrination that goes on and on and on and on. So you kill one set, you get another set coming. How many times have they killed their leaders and we kept on having them revolve in one way or the other? And the first thing is we should know that this is not an internal thing alone. We have an external factor that is controlling it as well. We have a Shia Muslim from the Iran and all these other factors that contributed towards this. So it's not something you deal with in Nigerian context and think it's over. As we're talking about, the other nations are facing the same thing around us. So this is the war problem. Nigeria is just facing the brunt right now, but it's a systemic plan by the Muslim towards the whole world. And Nigeria is at the forefront of the battle. And I believe that the president is taking the right action.